Creo que todos somos muy conscientes que en un momento como este es muy necesario más que nunca una visión global de la situación. Para ello, para empezar a articular esta visión global, hemos pedido en primer lugar la opinión de Robert Lovelace. Él es vicepresidente de Capital Group Companies y presidente y director ejecutivo de Capital Research and Management Company. Le hemos preguntado cómo está lidiando esta crisis uno de los fondos de inversión más importantes del mundo. Ellos tienen bajo gestión 2 billones con B de dólares de activos y además cuentan con 55 millones de clientes en todo el mundo. Así que buscamos la visión desde los Estados Unidos con Robert Lovelace.
Hola a todos. Soy Rob Lovelace, presidente de Capital Group. Espero que todos estén bien. Muchas gracias a CEDE, a su patronato y a su presidente Isidro Fainé por invitarnos a participar en este Congreso Anual de Directivos. Es un placer estar con ustedes. Pensé que sería una buena idea grabar esta primera parte de mi intervención desde mi casa en Los Ángeles. La luz del sur de California es maravillosa. Me recuerda mucho a la preciosa luz mediterránea de Valencia, que espero estén hoy disfrutando. Me encantaría poder estar allí con ustedes. En lo personal, España forma parte de mi vida. En mi infancia viví en Mallorca y en Málaga, y aún conservo familia allí. Aunque me ha ido mi acento español. Y ahora tengo uno latinoamericano. En lo profesional, Capital Group también conoce muy bien su país. Basados en nuestro análisis fundamental, ya vamos invirtiendo en España de manera activa durante décadas y hace unos años abrimos una oficina en Madrid para estar más cerca de nuestros clientes. Muchas compañías, algunas representadas en este Congreso, han sido y siguen siendo parte de nuestras carteras globales. Confiamos en el futuro de sus empresas y de su país. Hoy les quiero hablar acerca de cómo el COVID ha afectado a la economía global y a los mercados y sobre todo, cómo vamos a encontrar el camino que nos lleve de vuelta a la prosperidad. Pienso que España, como el resto de la economía global, se recuperará y saldrá de esta pandemia más fuerte. Bueno, me voy a la oficina.
Let me start by sharing a story. Almost daily, friends, family, and even colleagues ask me if the stock markets have gone crazy. They say, Rob, how can we be near or even above the stock market index levels we were at before we knew about COVID-19? Why aren't investors worried about the human and economic costs of the pandemic? And I have to admit, it does look on the surface like markets around the world are being overly optimistic. But when you start to drill down into the details, it begins to make a lot more sense. My advice to everyone is to use a framework that separates the progress of the pandemic from the health of the economic recovery and the movements of the market. Let me say that one more time. Separate out the pandemic from the economy and the movements in the market. Those are 3 different things. They're clearly linked, but those links are much less strong than people assume. So within that framework, let's start with COVID-19 itself. Societies are learning how to cope with it. Some countries and regions are better than others. It seems likely that COVID-19 will be with us for some time, and it may even be with us forever. What is interesting, though, is that as we see new flare-ups, their impact on people and the economy is diminishing. as treatments and responses get better, and maybe even due to the nature of the virus. I believe we will continue to see flare-ups, even some severe ones, around the world. But that pattern of diminishing impact will continue to reduce the fear and, accordingly, the economic impact, so businesses can pick up. So we'll continue to have flare-ups, but we will find better ways of dealing with it, and we will be able to have stronger business as a result. Which leads me to the economy. If you take one thing away from this talk, it's this. We are experiencing a global slowdown due to policy decisions taken around the world to protect people's health. This is not a typical business cycle. The cycle didn't end, as is often the case, due to overheating sectors or central bank intervention to cool things off. It ended because governments decided to keep people home. There's no precedent for this action in over 100 years, and I'm not even convinced the 1918 pandemic is a good comparison. Also very important, not only did we end the cycle with policy decisions, we are restarting it with a combination of monetary and market support actions, many of which were developed and tested during the great financial crisis. The nature of the economic slowdown, that it was policy-induced, and the recovery, which has been well managed and coordinated, leads many, including me, to believe that we will have a U-shaped recovery in most places, including the US. Let me show you what I mean on a chart, since it's an easier way to visualize it. This chart shares three potential hypotheses of a shape of recovery and the probabilities that we give them. The best case would be a V-shaped recovery, which would happen because of a strong policy response and a positive medical outcome. The worst case is a W-shaped recovery, which would be a poor viral scenario and a bad policy response. The U-shaped recovery, labeled as likely, depicts a recovery with a longer period of time in recession before more modest growth in 2021. The U and V-shaped scenarios currently look most likely in part because of the fact that, as I mentioned, flare-ups of the virus are occurring, but they seem to be having a less severe and shorter-lived impact, which reduces the likelihood we'll slip into another contraction. In the US, we're already seeing signs that the economy is bottoming out. Travel is modestly picking up, people are starting to eat out again, and retail activity is picking up. However, we will see bumps along the way, particularly as we enter 2021 and the comparisons get harder. So that leads me to the markets. And let me focus on the equity markets in particular. I think volatility in the markets will remain elevated for a while, and that shouldn't surprise anybody. And that could impact markets all the way through 2021. But remember, markets are forward-looking. They don't care much about the past. So it should not be surprising that global equity markets are telegraphing the expected economic recovery. Remember what I said earlier. The economic cycle this time is very different. It is unique, since it was policy-induced, with the economy then being restarted by others' monetary and market actions. As a result, the market reactions are different as well. How many of you have heard this market being compared to the TMT bubble of the 1990s or the Nifty 50 of the 1960s or some other terrifying period? For some reason, it's never compared to a great period. As this chart shows, using the US as an example, the pattern this time is very different than ever before. We've never seen such a rapid decline nor such a rapid recovery. I think that speaks to investors' belief that because it was a deliberate, controlled policy action that brought about the economic slowdown and market downturn, the unwinding of those policy actions can bring about a reversal. Said another way, I think there's a feeling of greater control among investors. In addition to looking forward to the recovery, the market appears to also recognize that many companies are doing well despite the challenges. And governments and central banks took actions such as cutting interest rates, buying bonds, and setting up various programs and liquidity provisions that all helped alleviate market stress and support the markets. A look beneath the surface of the U.S. stock market shows there has been a stark divide between winners and losers in this era of limited mobility. As shown in the chart, online retailers and grocers have enjoyed strong sales growth as consumers eat in and do their shopping in front of a screen. If you look at the other retail sales, they have not done as well, and in fact have contracted. Providers of broadband, healthcare, home improvement materials, and education services have also benefited from healthy demand. Conversely, restaurants, travel and leisure companies, aerospace for sure, they have all seen sales evaporate. Some of this activity reflects an acceleration of existing trends, some of it is temporary, and some of it represents fundamental change. Our job as active investors at Capital Group is to seek to identify the long-term winners and losers. So let me summarize the key points from today that make me optimistic about the future. First, while COVID-19 will be with us for some time to come, we have to know that there will be serious flare-ups. But it appears those health events will have a diminishing negative impact on the economy as we figure out how to operate in the new world and therapies improved. Second, the global economy has already bottomed in some regions, and we expect a U-shaped recovery without a dip back into recession. There is no historic precedent for what we are experiencing since the recession was policy-induced, and the recovery is being sustained through government actions as well. And lastly, while the market seems too optimistic, there are many companies, including some of the largest listed companies, that are not only doing well, but they are growing faster now. The fact that there are clear winners and losers is ideal for security selection for active investors such as Capital Group. We were founded in a challenging economic and market period like this one, and we remember the lessons we learned and the importance of helping people stay invested. The markets will be volatile, but with interest rates close to zero, equity markets play a crucial and central role in helping people generate the wealth they need for their future. Thanks so much for your time and for the honor of being with you today. There is a path back to prosperity. We can see it just on the other side of the valley, and you will need to stay invested to see the benefits of it. Thank you.